Hi, this is John Rowell for the Rowell Report. Today is Monday, September 15th, 2025, and today is the Independence Day in Mexico, so I want to congratulate all the Mexicans who may be joining my channel for their Independence Day. Well, we have um, a lot of crying going on in NATO, but especially in Poland, um, and this is quite an amazing tribute to the desperation of the NATO countries to try to provoke NATO into an Article 5 response to Russia. So, anyway, I'm going to go through the whole scenario of what happened and why this is so ridiculous. So, anyway, first, here is a map. This is on the Independent, the-independent.com, and these are the locations of the downed drones. So anyway, at least the supposed locations. So we can see some are very close to the border, and then we have a couple which are very far away. So, um, President Putin of Russia said that these drones have a range of 700 kilometers. Well, of course, there could have been a tailwind that evening, but they would have needed quite a tailwind to get to this location called Oleshno, which is to the west of Częstochowa. If you've ever been to Poland or ever visited the Marian Shrine in Częstochowa, or Czestochowa, as some call it. Um, this location is to the west of that. So we're talking about quite a distance from the border with Ukraine. And I went ahead and measured the distance. So here we have a map um, of the distance. If the drone was to be launched exactly on the border with Ukraine, which we know it wouldn't have been, because they're going to have their assets quite a bit back from the border. But let's just say it's launched from the border. We're looking at 1,180 kilometers, so that's 733 miles, which is quite a bit over the what would that be? That's like 50% more distance than its range. But then if you set it back from a distance that would be more logical for them to launch these drones, we're looking at 1,300 kilometers or over 800 miles. So if what President Putin said is accurate, then these drones have gone quite a bit further than they were made to do. And you could argue that as they got closer and closer to the border, they could have been hit with GPS morphine. But even the morphine isn't going to add more distance to these drones. So, anyway, I'm going to take a little closer look at these drones, which they're saying was terrorizing Poland. So, here is an image of one of the drones, which they said had entered Polish airspace. You can see that it's duct tape, and I don't think that they have duct tape in these factories. Putting duct tape on the wings, putting duct tape here and here. Um, this looks pretty ridiculous. Why would anyone have a military drone and then duct tape it? This isn't really very rational. And if you look here, this is the underside of one of the wings. You can see this is foam. So these these drones are lightweight. They're cheap. They have really no power to them, and certainly they're not a cause of panic, even if they were to enter into Poland. And you can see these are not armed with anything. They couldn't be armed with anything with the foam. I mean, basically, if you put any weight on them, they would just nosedive into the ground. So we're looking at some real incoherence, real illogical evidence being presented. So let me take another look here. Here's another drone. You can see um, it's got this, you can see this kind of the shape where they made this top part of the wing in kind of a mold. So they sprayed foam. It's one of these styrofoam molds, and it's hollow inside, so these have no weight. They can't carry any kind of charge. And as I understand, these are the dummy drones that they send ahead of the real drones, and these are to sponge up all the air defense missiles or whatever they're shooting up as air defense. These are supposed to sponge them up. So they're just supposed to go to one of their targets areas and then just circle until they use up um, one of the air defenses. So one of the air defense missiles. So anyway, why would they just fly into Poland? That would make no rational sense. So obviously they've been programmed with some kind of a route. You can say, well, maybe there was a GPS morphine that got confused. But first of all, this drone doesn't pose any danger to anyone, and it can't carry any kind of a charge. If you wanted it to carry some kind of an explosive, what kind of explosive could this even carry? But these are what they call dummy drones. They're styrofoam. They're to go in an area to absorb the missile defense. There's also these lightweight drones, these cheap drones, and they're surveillance drones. So if it was a surveillance drone, it wouldn't it wouldn't present any danger to Poland. But why would they be sending them to check out an open field in Poland? Maybe they were going to check out the cows, maybe the pigs, maybe the sheep, maybe the crops. Maybe they wanted to see if they had harvested the crops yet. So anyway, any other idea that these dummy drones are these surveillance drones were going into Poland to, to attack Poland and to, close its, to attack its cities and close its airports. This drone has no weight to it. So even if it hit you, and it was going full blast, I mean, it would just bounce off. It has really no weight to it. It might give you a black eye or something, but that's about it if it hit you in the eye. But anyway, um, here's another image of a duct tape drone. I can assure you that the Russians aren't duct taping drones. So my idea is that they found some of these surveillance or these dummy drones in Ukraine, and they duct tape them up, and then they just drove them into Poland and put them on an open field, and that was and then they created this whole narrative about the planes going and the F-35s shooting down these duct tape foam drones, and that sounds so preposterous and ridiculous. But that's the narrative that they sent, that somehow Russia was testing the limits, that Putin is testing the waters, and Putin is testing NATO, and Putin is testing Trump. If they were going to test the limits, it would be something else that they would have used than some foam drone, which has no, it really does nothing other than go to a target area and maybe do surveillance or sponge up the air defenses. So this whole narrative that they've been putting out from NATO, and they had this meeting. They even called a Security Council meeting in the United Nations, and they had more than 40 countries say, Russia did Russia attacked Poland, and Russia is evil, and we must stop Putin. Take a look at this drone. This has no possibility to carry any kind of an explosive. It's just made out of styrofoam. You could pick it up and throw it. Uh, and it would probably fly for a distance. When I was growing up, we used to get these foam planes we would put together, and you could throw it, and they could go probably about 100 yards or so. So this is basically one of those kind of you know, cheap $10, $15 uh, put together styrofoam planes, and they put a little motor on it, and they put a little brain on it so that it could, go to a specific location. But there's nothing of any importance in Poland that Russia is interested. So why would they, send duct tape foam drones into Poland? So, and then they said that this duct tape foam drone hit a roof and did terrible damage. So, this is the damage. Supposedly, that this drone, here's this foam drone, this little foam drone, and it's not very big. Like I say, these foam drones, foam planes you could get, kids could get, they could put them together, they could throw them, and if you got a decent, tailwind, they could go quite a distance. But if they hit you, they would just bounce off. So how could they do this kind of damage on a roof in Poland? What I heard is that there was a storm a couple of weeks before, and so there was damage to this roof, and they just decided to pick out this location, and then say that this duct tape foam drone did all this damage. So that's pretty amazing that they could come up with such a ridiculous story. And I still can't see exactly where the danger was to NATO or to Poland. And they said, well, we can't call Article 5, but we're going to call Article 4. And, they get together and they deliver all these speeches, and Putin's testing the waters, and, Trump has abandoned Europe, and, Poland is in danger, from some duct tape foam drone, that just flies around until it absorbs up the air defenses, or has a little camera there. But there's nothing interesting. Let's go back to the locations again. This is all open fields. These are all agricultural fields. There's nothing of any interest for Russia to see there, and so but you can see that kind of goes in a line. You got these two that are together by the border. So it looks like they crossed the border from Ukraine into Poland, and then they dropped a couple off here, and then somebody split off here, someone else split off there, and then they continued on the road. They dropped this one off in Minskov, and then they got to Oleshno and dropped off the last one. So this is from what I can see so this whole narrative about these duct tape foam drones being a danger to NATO, to Poland, time to call Article 5, time to move air defenses closer to Ukraine to stop all these duct tape foam drones. It makes no sense. And so anyway, but we're just gonna get more of these incidents coming out. They're trying to they're trying to come up with some justification for calling the Article 5, everyone to the defense of Ukraine, even though Ukraine isn't a member of NATO. So they said, well, let's see if we can do Article 5 for Poland. Everyone to the defense of Poland against the duct tape foam drones. So anyway, in the United Nations vote, 150 nations didn't support this whole narrative. Only those countries that are financially compromised by their relationship with the United States, with NATO, with Poland, decided to join in on that. So for me, this is a nothing event, nothing to see here. There's no Article 5, there's no Article 4. Basically, they picked up some duct tape drones from Ukraine. They drove them across the border. You can even see kind of the line they followed to try to drop them off. This last location is about 1,300 kilometers, or about 800 miles from the location it probably left. That's so far beyond what its supposed range is, and even with a good tailwind, it wouldn't have got there. So I'm just seeing this as another desperation Hail Mary that Donald Tusk in Poland was trying to carry out. And he's been very belligerent in this whole conflict. He's, you know, he came out and said Europe will reject any peace deal rewarding Russia with Ukrainian land. Well, didn't the people in the Ukrainian land, in those oblasts or those regions, vote their way out of Ukraine? So isn't the vote of the people sacred? So why aren't you accepting these democratic measures when you say that Ukraine is a democracy? So that's also very hard to believe that Ukraine is a democracy if they don't simply accept the will of the people, those who wanted to vote out of Ukraine and join Russia because they were being shelled, because their leaders were being killed and assassinated. Their cities were being bombed and their kids were in danger. So there's nothing to see here. And so I would like to hear your comments in the comment section if you have any. And thank you for joining me for today's video. If you have any additional information to provide about this event, I'd like to hear about it. And I look forward to seeing you in another video. Take care.